partners, and so talk a little bit about that.
Well, President, let me first thank you for having me here. We are friends.
Yeah, very good.
So when I got the invitation, I said I can't say no. But let me first commend you for conceiving the idea of the plan. The problem with HIV, AIDS has been a big problem. People are losing life. And prior to PEPFAR, a diagnosis of HIV positive was like a death sentence. Because you're just telling somebody that you are going to die. The question is when. But when PEPFAR came and started becoming operational, it is no longer the case. It was particularly when the antiretroviral treatment was made available. So Tanzania had partnership with PEPFAR since 2003.
Right.
So as we celebrate 20 years here today, we are also celebrating 20 years of partnership. I became president in 2005, 2 years later. During the campaigns, I promised that I'm going to tend to intensify the fight against HIV/AIDS. Of course, when I began with the normal advocacy, the ABCs: abstain, be faithful, use protection. It was not good enough. So it came to my mind that I think let's do something big. Let's launch a nationwide campaign for testing. I think if we have everybody tested and everybody knowing his or her status, those who are HIV positive will know how to behave, and those who are HIV negative, but they have been a bit notorious, they know now they have to behave better. But my challenge has been, how do I get the test kits? So I called the US ambassador to State House. It was Michael Ritz, I think. I said, Ambassador, I have a plan to intensify the fight against HIV/AIDS. But this will only work if you say yes to my request. So what is the request? Test kits. He said, President, just do it. The United States government will be there to help you. So that's how we began. And this was December 2006. During the commemoration of the 1st of December 2006, and I planned for July. It gave ourselves 7 months to plan. I remember the 14th of July 2007, we launched this major campaign at a big square in Dar es Salaam. And I said, you know, people are afraid of testing. So the best thing is for my wife and I to lead by example. And we should not do it under the tent where nobody sees it. We'll be under the tent, but let's have television cameras beaming, blood being drawn, being taken to the labs. Of course, my veins were easy, but my wife had some problem. They pre-course several times before they could get the. I was very sorry for her. But we said that's the price of leadership. Yeah, so we got tested. And because I got tested, we had so many people. On that day, 11,000 people tested at that square.
Yeah.
And that was to be the beginning of making testing something normal. A habit then began to be built. I'm told up to now the voluntary testing, I think, is going beyond 20 million. They are going to us 30 million in the country. But the advantage we had is that, one, it cleared the fear of testing, because the president and his wife have tested. But it also helped with stigma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because people fear to go tested and then given a positive test. And then after that, society stigmatizes them. And then after that, we came up with, and then it gave people the courage to declare their status. So it somehow helped with that. But but when we were actually, when I was campaigning, because the 6 months I had to campaign vigorously, people have been asking me questions. If I test positive, what happens? Because that's like going to a court of law and we get death by hanging. Yes? I said, don't worry. Antiretroviral treatment is there. So it is PEPFAR that gave me the audacity to launch this campaign. And, well, it has helped. At the time I was president, prevalence was 7%. By the time I left 2015, it was 5.1. And it is much lower now.
That's great.
So you can see how through ARVs, many lives have been saved. But through ARVs again, when with building the capacity for viral load testing, many people have been prevented from being infected. Those who have tested positive will become careful, and those who have become positive, but also the viral load, because I think there's a certain threshold. When the viral load gets to that threshold, even if the guy is negligent, he will not be able to infect anybody else with the virus. So that's the importance of viral load testing. And it has increased. I think we are now going towards 97%, yes, of the samples, this testing. So I'm saying this has been a wonderful initiative. But the other important thing, the United States is the first country in the world to invest in the fight against one disease. There's been a lot of works, but the US is in history. The United States is the only country that has focused on one disease. Because everybody is doing that, but the US has been the only country, so thank you for your compassion.
Yeah, well, thank the people, not me. I was just president.
Also, as the president has said, I also say thank Congress.
Yeah.
Yes, because if the government has taken that decision, and if they sent it to Congress, and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell said no, we wouldn't have had PEPFAR funded. So this is also the other thing I'm saying thank you so much. And Nancy Pelosi is here. We also thank Congress. But the most important thing is we thank the people of the United States.
There you go.
Yes, because you have shown when you decide to care, to take the interest of the others' mind, what it means.
Mr. President,
Yes.
yes, did you want to say something, or should I?
Well, I was going to say that as a result of PEPFAR, it enabled African countries to deal with other diseases. As I was told last night by an expert, that African nations were more likely to be able to deal with COVID when it hit because of the PEPFAR platform.
Yes, sir.
And when the great contribution, not only saving lives, but leaving behind a healthcare structure that had not existed prior to 2003. Anyway, go ahead.
No, well, Mr. President, I was actually going to ask you about some of the success factors, because the compassion of the American people, I think, is really endless, but they want to see results.
That's it.
And the way that this was set up, first of all, not bureaucratically, it was set up in a way that the leadership, and I see people like Mark Dybel out there and Debbie Burks, the leadership was able to really act quickly, to work directly with the Congress, and it was successful because it didn't get caught up in a lot of the bureaucracy. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there needs to be an AIDS coordinator in the State Department that reports to the Secretary of State, for starters. And that way, not to be doing your business, Wendy, but that way people can be held to account. One of the real problems you got sometimes in Washington is authority and responsibility are not properly aligned, and therefore no one is to blame if something fails. And this program was set up where, when it didn't work, we could call Dieball in and say, "What the hell is going on, man? Fix it." And we had clear goals. Oftentimes, there's too many goals. Our goal was to save lives from AIDS, and they were measurable. Deb Burks did a hell of a job of setting up fact-finding, you know, so we knew exactly what was where. She can wear you out on all that, by the way. And and so the structure matters, I think is what Condi's saying. You can't hold people to account unless you align authority and responsibilities, which we did. And I think your point is we hope we keep it that way in order to be successful. I mean, this is a program, you know, a lot of people have a lot of skepticism about government programs. You can't have skepticism about this one. Measurable results. And, you know, 25 million people live who would have died. It's extraordinary. And is that in our national interest? Absolutely. We're a great nation and a moral nation. It's our national security interest as well. So I'll never forget traveling to the continent of Africa and meeting with orphans. As a result of the pandemic, there were a lot of orphans. And had the rich nations turned their back on the orphans, there's another group that would have showed up called Al-Qaeda. They were very active in East Africa. Remember those guys? Yeah. And they just said, look, Americans don't care about you, but we do. Join our family. And then all of a sudden we'd be dealing with a revived terrorist network that had destroyed people in your country and in Kenya prior to that. And they were very active. And thankfully, you were also tough on terror. You're tough on AIDS and tough on terror. Glad you weren't tough on me.
It was duty.
Anyway, good leading question.
Right. And I'd like to ask President Kikwete another question also about how we succeeded. And a lot of that was your leadership in your country, but it was also enlisting other African leaders to lead. And I said to President Kikwete, we were fortunate that we had a particularly good set of African leaders at the time, people who cared about their countries, people who cared about their people, and people who were effective in their leadership. Can you talk a little bit about the discussions and conversations among African leaders about the AIDS pandemic and how to deal with it during that time?
Of course, as you rightly said, you know, leadership makes a huge difference. If the leadership is not responsive enough, if the leadership doesn't put in place the right policies, the leadership doesn't put in place the institutions to implement those policies, the structures, things won't work. And of course, well, fortunately there are many good leaders in Africa, except there are exceptions there definitely. And I think this is what has really helped. because we share experiences. We share experiences. How have you done it? How have they done it? You know, our first case of AIDS were 3 people. The first diagnosis was in 1984. And these 3 people were living on the border with Uganda. And at that time, the disease had already become permanent in Uganda. And after that, it's just spread like a bushfire. And then the whole country, not that bush. Yes. In the whole country. Then we had people dying. There was nothing that they could do. As I'm saying, when PEPFAR came in. So we put up the structures. The other good thing about PEPFAR is that it also helped us establish the programs for response. Mm-hmm. It also helped us and train the health professionals. I think about 750 were trained through a CDC special program on training. So you have already a program in place. You have the health professionals, yes. They also through PEPFAR we worked on the labs. We got assistance for labs. I remember 44 labs had international accreditation. Yes. International accreditation. So when you have the professionals, you have the labs, you have the structures and the systems, why shouldn't things work? And when you have the commitment. And now, of course, we have a new president, a lady, yes, who is doing so. She sends her regards to you.
Thank you.
She thanks you for the wonderful idea of establishing PEPFAR. But she's also sending greetings, his appreciations to the 4 administrations, including yours, that has been working on this, to Congress, to the people of the United States. All she's saying is continued collaboration and cooperation until we defeat this disease. And the target is 2030. Hopefully we'll get there. And if we are all determined, we'll get there. Because if the infection rate was 85% in 2010 when I was president, it is now 46%. I'm sure in the remaining few years we may be able to get to the target of 0 AIDS by 2030.
Yeah, well, we're at the Institute of Peace. And if you're interested in peace, health equity is a foundation for peace. It's hard to have peace. It's hard to have peace in a society in which a disease is ravaging the villages and the people. And so another reason to support PEPFAR is it yields peace, or the foundation of peace. So we thank the Institute of Peace for having us.
That's right.
Yeah, first time I've ever been in here.
I don't think so.
No, I was here for the dedication, I know, but I've never been in this long.
How quickly we forget. But let's talk a little bit more about the point that you just made, because we're here to celebrate PEPFAR, but I think it also transformed in many ways the relationship between the United States and Africa.
Yeah.
It's something that I have to give credit to successive administrations for continuing to work in this way. It shows that America can sustain when you have a change in the White House, when you have changes in the Congress, it shows that we can sustain something like this. But Mr. President, you also did a lot around foreign assistance for Africa, girls' education in Africa. I know that President Kikwete is very involved in an international effort now on girls' education. The work that we did with the First Lady on women and women's health in Africa. So PEPFAR really, I think, stimulated a larger framework for peace and well-being in Africa. So I'd like each of you to perhaps say a word about that, and then we'll turn momentarily to the future.
Millennium Challenge account? Weren't you a recipient of that?
Yes.
Yeah, a big one. I think we got the largest. Thank you.
Yes, the largest one. Yes.
Well, you had to earn it. We just weren't going to dump it on you. You had to have like non-corrupt government. You had to focus on educating women, and we had criterion, and you made it grandly. No, one of the things that I learned was the enormous potential on the continent of Africa. Very smart people, if given a chance to thrive. Hard-working people, if given a chance to make a living, and. So PEPFAR is really a part of something larger, and that is a relationship between a very important part of the world in the United States. And, hopefully, it's a framework that other presidents can use and other secretaries of state can use. And, but yeah, it was an awesome experience traveling to Africa with you.
Yeah, I'll never forget being in Uganda and a group of AIDS orphans singing "God Bless America." I don't think there was a dry eye in the place.
Yeah.
So.
My problem was, Mr. President, I get carried away by good music, and I got YouTube dancing with African women, and my daughters were humiliated. They questioned my moves.
They did, with good reason. Mr. President, do you want to say a word about the broader framework in U.S.-Africa relations and where you'd like to see this?
Well, I'm saying PEPFAR, Millennium Challenge, PMI have been major instruments of U.S. foreign policy. They've been touching the life of the people. Take for example, Millennium Challenge. When we were discussing Millennium Challenge, what and
that may be beyond my abilities at the moment.
Oops. All right, Carol, you've done a lot of good work for PEPFAR.
For a minute, I thought I was hearing voices.
No, it's okay. But it is within my ability. Yeah, because the beauty of Millennium Challenge is you, as a country, you decide where your interests are. And then we sit down with the team. We set up a team in the country at the Ministry of Finance that is working. Of course, I'm the one who took the leadership. But we chose, because I remember when we said, just choose, then I deliberately, for which I want to thank you, chose those roads where the other donors were not ready to assist. I remember in one of the roads, I don't want to mention the country, I went spoke about it, says, this is a road from nowhere to nowhere. I said, then fine. But when we listed this in our cooperation with MCC said, that's fine. So we were able to do that road. Because you just gave us the liberty to choose. Of course, we had benchmarks to fulfill on democracy, on human rights, and so on, which during my time were not big issues.
No,
they are not big issues. So this is the beauty of MCC. So we put in the roads, and we got the roads. We put in the submarine cable from mainland Tanzania to Zanzibar. We started rural electrification, water projects for urban areas. This is us saying, and the United States says, fine, if this is what you want, fine, you have it. Then, of course, take the case of PMI.
Yeah.
Malaria.
Malaria, yeah.
Yeah. President Malaria Initiative. You know, we are able, because malaria is the #1 killer disease. It still is. And AIDS was competing with malaria. Which one would be #1? But then we are able to with PEPFAR, we are able to deal with malaria, to be able to deal with AIDS. And PMI, we are able to deal with AIDS, with malaria. I was telling Mark, outside there, these days, many of the beds that used to have malaria patients are empty beds now. And thanks to the major contribution that PMI has done. So you have AIDS saving lives and PMI saving lives. You did a terrific job, my friend.
Yes. Thank you.
Also, the other is the efforts that have been made on mother-to-child transmission. That young girl from Tanzania here, when President Bush visited us, we went to a clinic. She was still tiny.
Yeah.
And I was really amazed. You know, it was also the first time I said, oh, so for a HIV positive couple can give birth to a baby who is not HIV positive.
That's right.
So that was amazing.
You know what happened, Mr. President?
Yes.
We invited the mom and the little child to the State of the Union address, and I saw a picture of it, and the child was sound asleep.
At least now she's awake.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Mr. President, you shouldn't tempt people with a line like that, but I'm going to actually, as we're wrapping up here, President Kikwete just said something I think is very important, which is that Africa was not an object of American policy in PEPFAR or a Millennium Challenger, it was a partner.
Right.
And in many ways trusting the leadership, good leadership in Africa to do the right things for its people. But I now want you to talk about American leadership, because there are a lot of people in our country who think that we should mind our own business.
Yeah.
A lot of people who think we've got too hard of problems in the United States.
That's wrong.
Do you want to make an appeal?
Well, I think we're a big enough nation to do more than one thing. And to continue the fight against AIDS on the continent of Africa and to support the Ukrainian freedom fighters is not going to strain our capacity to help our own citizens. I don't understand why there's any resistance to a program like PEPFAR.